Turkey says it's considering a tough response following skirmishes between Syrian forces and rebels across its border. Peace envoy Kofi Annan now in Turkey visiting refugee camps are full of victims there, and Syria's foreign minister has just been visiting Moscow to discuss the realities of implementing a UN peace plan as the deadline passes. With this report is RT's Peter Oliver.
Well, the two foreign ministers meeting here just behind me at the foreign ministry headquarters here in central Moscow. Sergei Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister, praised some of the progress that's being made by the Assad government towards implementing Kofi Annan's six-point peace plan for Syria. Now, he did praise that, but he also said that Syria could have been more proactive in their efforts.
We have information that Syria's government is starting to fulfill the steps laid out in Annan's plan by withdrawing troops and military hardware from cities. I will be honest with you, and we have shared our concerns with our Syrian colleagues. They could be more active and decisive in following the plan.
Well, Foreign Minister Lavrov went on to say that those nations that support the rebels in Syria must put pressure on them to adhere to the ceasefire when it comes into effect.
Kofi Annan's initiatives have been ignored by some, if not the majority, of opposition groups, including the Syrian National Council.
Well, following skirmishes on the border between Syria and Turkey, the Turkish Prime Minister has accused Syria of violating international law and said that he would be filing an official complaint with the Syrian authorities. Now, the reaction that's come from these skirmishes, we've heard from Mr. Erdogan, the Prime Minister of Turkey, saying that his country was considering all options, including those that they don't even want to think about. Now, in terms of international reaction, the United States has said that Turkey should bring this issue up with their NATO allies. Turkey, a member of the alliance, and of course one of the fundamental principles of NATO is that if one member of the alliance is attacked, all of the other members of the alliance step in to defend that nation. Well, of course, that would lead to a whole new reality in Syria and could dramatically change what's happening in the country right now. Now, the whole situation in Syria is still extremely complex. We've seen support for the rebels increase around the world, also funding coming in for them from groups like the Friends of Syria. And as Sarah Firth now reports, we're seeing Syrian rebels use Turkey as a safe haven from which to launch attacks against Syrian army troops.
Walking a fine line, as tens of thousands of refugees have crossed the Syrian border into Turkey, keeping the peace here has not been easy. And now the violence has spilled over, Syrian gunfire reaching across the border and into a refugee camp as government forces pursued fleeing members of the Free Syrian Army. Turkey started talking of setting up a buffer zone to ensure the security of its southern border and to protect civilians fleeing from violence in Syria. But it's also raised serious concerns that could undermine diplomatic efforts to end the conflict by setting the stage for fully fledged foreign military intervention. While serious questions will be raised about just why a refugee camp was located so close to a conflict area, even louder voices want to know why the rebels are being allowed to use the camp as a safe haven before returning back into Syria to continue their fight.
Walking in the wood and across the border and walking again. Maybe the army, a Turkish army, catch him and take him to the camp. Maybe he's come to here alone. There's some people come back. You know, these people work with the FSA and back beside the border, across the Turkish border to Syria and stay beside that border.
And are there many of the Free Syrian Army people here?
Yeah.
There are people here?
Yeah.
And they're operating still with the Syrian side?
You know, Turkish, the government Turkish, let him go and back to fight.
As well as the civilian refugee camps, Turkey hosts the military army defectors and the man considered the head of the FSA in the country. The camp where they stay is closely guarded, and the Turkish authorities make it extremely hard to access information here. But we managed to speak to one member of the Free Syrian Army about what they're wanting from the Turkish government.
We don't have enough weapons of our own. We need arms and equipment from NATO and international support to win this fight.
It's not just the FSA that Turkey's supporting. It recently played host to the Friends of Syria conference, where many countries, including Gulf states Qatar and Saudi Arabia, agreed to contribute millions to funding the Free Syrian Army. It was a move that some countries saw as undermining diplomatic efforts to put an end to the violence in the country peacefully. And these latest incidents are just the latest in a long line of setbacks for those efforts to be realised. Syrian refugees here are sceptical that a solution is close at hand. Thousands of people have made the journey across the border from Syria to end up in refugee camps like this one in Turkey. In some cases, they're just a few miles from their homes, but as the diplomatic efforts struggle on, they're left unable to return. Sarah Firth, RT, the Hatay province on the Turkish border.